We were gathered in the bottom of the stairwell adjacent to the hospital's cardiac catheter lab. Myself, the patient's wife, 2 daughters and 2 sons, and the doctor who had been placing the stent when the man's heart had unexpectedly and for no reason the doctor could name stopped. We were in the stairwell because there was no appropriate room in the lab for gathering grieving families, because people don't usually die there. The doctor was giving this man's family the worst news, but they didn't know it yet. He had introduced himself, presented his credentials, listed the precautions that had been taken, described in detail the moment his heart had stopped and the code blue interventions the team had performed, mentioned that said interventions had not been successful, and started to launch into a precise explanation of why exactly it was curious that his heart had stopped when the man's wife interrupted. Wait, you mean he's gone? Well, yes, and I can tell you that, and the rest of his explanation went unspoken as she howled in sudden anguish, joined by her children. The doctor backed out of the doorway as though physically pushed out by the waves of their grief, and retreated back into the surgery chamber's control room. I don't remember exactly what I said to them, but I know that it was long minutes before I said anything at all. I stood with them, bearing witness to their sorrow. After some time, I said a few words to acknowledge the magnitude and suddenness of their loss, a few words of clarification about what had happened, and offered some orientation to what would happen next. A little later, after the patient's body had been cleaned up and moved out into the recovery area, I led a brief service around his body, his hands joined with his children's, wife's, siblings, and mine. The last words of the Our Father hung in the air as the family gathered themselves together and slowly walked out of the lab into the afternoon sun. I went around to the staff, checking in with the folks who were still there, and I found the doctor still sitting in the control room, staring at the computer monitor that was playing back the CT scan footage of the exact moment the heart had stopped. Over and over and over. He heard me enter and looked up at me, eyes wide. He said, "I can't figure out what happened. I placed the stent and his heart just stopped. I can't figure out what happened. It doesn't make sense."
I don't remember everything about giving birth to my son, and I think this sort of amnesia is important, because if every woman remembered every detail about giving birth, our species would have been extinct long ago. But I do remember this, that at some point, many hours into the birthing process, which at that point was sort of feeling like the not birthing process, I had tried everything I had to try. I had altered my breathing the way I had practiced. I had pushed. I had tried being in water. I had paced and walked and tried to lie down in every way that I could. I had eaten and lost food. I had cried and screamed and bargained. Maybe this isn't a good idea. Never mind. I don't need to give birth. I literally said that at one point. And then came the time when the only thing I could do was just to give up my efforts for a while and be. And so there I was. For a very long time. Somewhere close to 4 eternities, I think it was. It wasn't that I had stopped trying to get the blessed child born. I had just stopped doing what wasn't working, which was to try and find a way to get him born that didn't hurt so much. I still pushed. I cried. I groaned for a little bit longer. But once I surrendered my idea that there had to be a less painful way to do this, I could take the help and the advice of the good and concerned people who had been all around me all the while. I could face what I needed to face, and I could stay in the struggle. So at about 8:30 in the evening, they placed my son on my chest for the first time, and he looked at me, and he raised one eyebrow, as if to say, "What took you so long?"